All right, we're going to get started, and Christy, you can just let folks hop on in when they get here. So I want to say hello and welcome to everyone. I want everyone to know that tonight's event is being recorded. But first of all, I just want to thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm Deb Paust, and I'm one of the organizing associates here at IMALS. And for anybody who's new to IMALS, we're a community-led organization, and we provide critical support and resources to people living with ALS, their families, and their caregivers. So IMALS has many amazing volunteers that drive initiatives like this one tonight. And so I want to thank our amazing Lou Gehrig Day team for coming up with this idea and for all that they do. So tonight we are excited to be kicking off ALS Awareness Month with two incredible writers. One is a 3 times New York Times bestselling biographer, and the other is a Grammy Award-winning singer, songwriter, and multi-instrumentalist. Both are advocates, and they're here to talk about Jonathan's book. And the book is about the great and inspirational Lou Gehrig, their connection to ALS, and their efforts to raise ALS and to make ALS a treatable disease. So first, I'd like to introduce Jonathan Eig, who's the author of The Luckiest Man, The Life and Death of Lou Gehrig. Since writing his book, Jonathan has served as the official spokesperson for the Les Turner ALS Foundation in Chicago, and he has spoken to help raise funds for the National ALS Association and many of their local chapters. He has spoken about ALS from everywhere from Yankee Stadium to the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum, and has written for publications about Lou Gehrig, including the Wall Street Journal. He also serves on the committee that selects the annual Lou Gehrig Memorial Award. Next, we have our special guest interviewer and friend, that's John Driskell Hopkins, otherwise known as Hop. Hop and his wife started a nonprofit called Hop on a Cure after he was diagnosed in 2021. Hop on a Cure is committed to supporting research to prevent, reverse, and cure ALS while raising awareness, building a compassionate community, and unleashing the healing power of hope. Hop is most well known as a founding member, vocalist, multi-instrumentalist, songwriter, gotta take a breath, and the Grammy Award-winning Zac Brown Band. And you can find them on the Sun Goes Down tour this summer with Kenny Chesney all over the US. When Hop is off the road, he is busy writing and producing in his Brighter Shade Studios in Atlanta. And I think he's even busier being a dad to Grace, Faith, and Hope. So before we get started tonight, I just wanted to let you guys know what to expect. Hop is going to start us off, and he's going to interview Jonathan. And then we're going to turn the tables, and then Jonathan is going to ask Hop some questions. We are going to save time at the end for everyone to ask or to provide questions. So throughout the whole hour, you guys can drop your questions in the chat. All right, let's get started, and I'm going to toss it over to you, Hop.
Thank you, Deb. First of all, Jonathan and I have not met before this, and it's an honor and a privilege to talk about your book, and I have been listening to it for the past several weeks, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you so much for writing it and for enlightening me on the life and the temperament and the family surrounding Lou Gehrig. I think so many of us have associated his name with ALS and fail to realize what an incredible ball player and gentleman that he was. And you brought to light so many pieces of that I previously did not understand. So thank you.
Thank you.
Um,
I appreciate that.
I just addressed any of the questions that I'm supposed to ask, then I've screwed this. Um, but that's what I'm good at is screwing things up and then being able to save face. So my first question is kind of some background story. What inspired you to become a writer, and why did you write a book about Lou Gehrig?
Well, first of all, thanks to Deb for putting this together, and thank you, Hop, for agreeing to participate. It's an honor to talk to you. I've enjoyed your music for so many years. I think I was inspired to be a writer because I couldn't do anything else. I wanted to play guitar, broke my arm, and never took it up again. And I wanted to play baseball, and I just wasn't very good, but I could write. And I started out as a newspaper reporter. And I think because I was a big baseball fan, I always wanted to write about sports, even though I was never really a sports writer. It was always something that pulled at me. I think writing gave me the chance to take some time to think before I expressed myself. I was very shy, so I think writing gave me a chance to feel more confident about myself. And the Lou Gehrig story was just always right there for me because I was a Yankee fan. You know, as a kid, I grew up living and breathing the Yankees. I could tell you everything about Lou Gehrig's stats and Babe Ruth and Joe DiMaggio and Mickey Mantle all the way up to the 70s and 80s when I was a big Yankee fan. So I think it was just natural eventually that the Lou Gehrig story would come to me as a really good one to tell once I established myself as a writer.
What position did you play when you played baseball?
Well, my dad was the coach, so he put me in right field most of the time. Sometimes second base if he was feeling nice.
Sounds like my dad. My dad would put me in right field in T-ball. And then when he wasn't the coach, I got to play third base.
Right.
But I only played through 12 years old because the 13-year-old league only had 45 guys that wanted to play that year. And so we were offered to try out for the older kids, and my dad wouldn't let me.
Well, saved your talents, saved your for something better. I gave
my hands, right?
That's right. I quit when kids started throwing curveballs. That was it for me.
Right. Well, I do really look fondly back on playing, even though I never played in anything that generated more than childhood excitement. So and I grew up a Braves fan, so I get that. And in fact, when we went to New York for the first time in high school on a theater trip, we made it a point to go to a Yankees game. And the Yankees have always been, kind of this iconic, incredible force of nature. And we made sure to buy fitted Yankee ball caps.
Nice.
Me and my best friend from high school. So I'm a sideways Yankee fan too. Thank you for that. We know and we understand that you have been a long-time ALS supporter. Do you have a personal connection to ALS?
Well, now I do. I mean, first of all, Lou Gehrig didn't have any family. He had no kids. Didn't have any nieces or nephews or anything. So I feel like I've been blessed with the privilege of stepping into that role and representing him sometimes. When the Hall of Fame dedicated a Lou Gehrig statue, they asked me to come and help unveil it. But also since the book came out and since I've started doing work with all these ALS groups across the country, and especially in Chicago, I've made a lot of friends with ALS, and I've just gotten to know them and seen, close up what they've done and how much courage they displayed. And it's really interesting because you see a lot of the same traits that Lou Gehrig had. This sense of responsibility. Also, as one of the first doctors I interviewed, I interviewed a lot of neurologists. They said ALS always seems to strike the nicest people. And I think that seems to be true. But I've been really fortunate to get to know and work with a lot of folks who, while not only battling their personal experience with ALS, they've taken up the cause, and they've worked to fund research. They've been involved in experiments on new drugs. Just an incredible community of people. And it's worth remembering that Lou Gehrig, when he was diagnosed, felt like cure is right around the corner, and he did everything he could, to make himself available to do that work to find a cure. And
histamines.
What's that?
Histamines.
Yeah, right. Histamines were the first thing they tried, and then like massive doses of vitamin E. These things, Gehrig just said, "Bring it on. Whatever you got, I'll try it." And that's one of the really remarkable things about it. And that's partly why I was so interested in this book. I think a lot of people had just come to think of Lou Gehrig as a baseball player, and nobody had ever really documented his experience with ALS. And that's in part because he didn't leave any kids behind to tell about it, and he didn't really talk about it publicly that much, what he was going through. But I thought it was so important, especially for folks with ALS or with family members with ALS, to know that more about what Gehrig went through.
Yeah. It always seems like the cure is just around the corner, doesn't it?
Yeah.
With every new discovery, every new internet article, it's like, ooh, this, that. And we still have no idea how far we are away from a cure. We truly believe that we're going to get there. In fact, one of my doctors said that this is our time, and with all the things that are going on and all the exciting new research that maybe we're going to officially connect the right dots. So
it
that's
does seem like we're getting closer.
How cool is it to be on the committee that selects the annual Lou Gehrig Memorial Award?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like I said, just to be associated with Gehrig in any way, to have my name on the book cover with him is incredible. But then to go to Cooperstown and to get to give a speech, or to be on the committee that helps decide that award. I mean, it's just great because what it reminds me is that the Gehrig name is still so powerful, and that he's still such an inspiration to so many people. And I think that's why we're here talking today, because ALS is a disease that takes away your muscles, but Gehrig is still a symbol of strength. He still gives us strength, and that's why for me it's such an honor to be a part of it. But and those awards are great too, because it's reminding people that Gehrig was not just a great ball player, that he was a man of character, that he didn't just fight this disease. He just lived a whole life of dignity, and he really still inspires us in so many ways.
Is that the kind of committee where you're just on it until you feel like you need to bow out, or is there a term, or you're just on it for life?
I don't know. I hope I'm on it for life, unless I, like you said, unless I screw it up and they fire me.
Is it a big committee? Like, how many people are on it?
Yeah, it's like a dozen people, and we don't meet in person. It's all done over Zoom and email. Maybe we'll someday get together and party. I've only been on it for 1 year, so this is my first time around.
Do you have to be a Yankee fan to be on it?
No, but I think that actually is a strike against me. I think there's too many Yankees winning the award. They got to spread it around a little bit.
Right. Can you tell us how you got selected and what the process is of awarding someone the Lou Gehrig Memorial Award?
Well, I'm not sure how I got selected. I think it's just because I've been hanging around a long time, and I wrote this book. This book came out in 2005,
Yeah.
and it's amazing that it still gets a lot of attention, and I think that a new generation discovers it, every so often, because Gehrig is just one of those iconic figures, and I guess the book has been around long enough that somebody thought I'd be a good committee member, but there's really not much to it. They send around a list of candidates. Each team submits a player for the award, and they write about why this person deserves it, and it's usually based on their community service. And then we vote for our favorites, and we vote for you pick your top 3 candidates, and then they count up all the votes. I did not. I'll be honest with you. I did not vote for the winner this year. He was my second choice, but I have to do some more lobbying next year. I got to learn how to play the game.
Yeah, you don't have to share that, by the way, Jonathan. You don't have to play your cards right in front of all of us.
Yeah, you're a good interviewer. I'm breaking down.
Yeah, your secret is safe with me, though.
All right.
Just not all these other yahoos that are on here. You got to watch out for Lori.
You probably just got me fired from the committee. It's going to be one and done for me.
Right. Well, that's amazing. I mean, I was on the Grammy board for several years in my local chapter, and then as a trustee, and selecting things for awards is not an easy task,
Yeah, how do you compare, one musician to another? That's got to be so hard.
When all of them are the best of the best.
Right.
And it just comes down to who agreed that year. And there have been several times when I was like, my guy was better. And
right.
And you just have to trust the committee. Did the book finish the way you started it, or did new information reshape the book while you were writing it?
That's a great question. So when I started the book, I felt like the most important thing I had to do was figure out what he went through with ALS, what it was like for him to have ALS, because I knew the baseball part of the story would be pretty easy to tell.
I knew you can look that up pretty easily with Wikipedia on New York Yankees stats, right?
Exactly. But nobody knew what happened to him after he gave that speech. He's diagnosed with ALS in the beginning of the 1939 season, and he retires. He gives this farewell speech, and then we don't hear from him.
And then he just goes off to die.
That's the way it looks in the movie, right? Have you seen the movie with Gary Cooper?
Yeah, Pride of the Yankees. I watched it right after I finished your book. I was like, okay, where are the movies on this? Because I'm intrigued. I want to. And Gary just walks off into the dugout, and it's like,
yeah, that's the end of the movie.
Bye.
So I wanted to know what happened after he gave the speech, because he lived for 2 more years. And so I started trying to figure out what happened to him. I called the Mayo Clinic and I said, would you please send me Lou Gehrig's medical records? And they just laughed at me. You can't have those. I actually tried to convince the Minnesota State.
Why can't you have them?
Yeah, that's what I said. I said, he's really important. His case is
very important. Mine after I'm dead.
All right, thank you. You got to put that in writing. But I actually
You're pretty loose-lipped, though. I may have to rethink that.
Yeah, that's right. I can't keep a secret. But I actually tried to get the Minnesota State Legislature to pass a law saying that Lou Gehrig's medical records could be released for the public good, because he's so important and he's such an inspiration, and we need to know more about ALS and the history of it and how it was diagnosed and how it was treated. But I didn't get anywhere with that. So while I was doing my research, I talked to all these doctors. I actually found one doctor who had been there was still alive when Gehrig was visiting the Mayo Clinic. And I talked to several doctors who'd actually seen his medical records, but they wouldn't tell me what was in there. And then after about a year or two of research, maybe it was about 2 years of research, I found the letters that Lou Gehrig wrote to his doctor after his diagnosis. 200
Amazing.
pages of letters. And they had the letters that the doctor wrote to Lou Gehrig as well, because the doctor made carbon copies of his own letter. When I talk to kids, they don't know what carbon copies are, but he saved the copies of his own letters to Lou. So we had both sides of the correspondence. And in these letters, Gehrig really described what he was going through. Everything from, how much his weight was fluctuating to how hard what a hard time he was having quitting smoking cigarettes. Then he starts talking about, his hands and you can see in the beginning, he's signing the letters by hand, but after a while, his handwriting starts to get bad. And then he starts using a rubber stamp instead of signing them. So that was a big surprise to me. I had no idea that I was going to find, 200 pages of Gehrig's personal letters. And that really changed the book because, I got to know him much better than I could have possibly without those letters, because Gehrig was really shy. He didn't like talking to the public. He didn't like doing interviews. And if it hadn't been for those letters, I don't know if I really would have appreciated just what he went through in those last couple of years of his life.
That's incredible. The letters are a super big deal. So you were able to interview a doctor from Mayo. Who else was still around from that time? Were you able to interview anyone that shed light on Lou's mother or his wife or Babe Ruth?
Yeah, I met a few. I think I found 30 people who were alive and knew Gehrig. And
Wow.
as I started this book like right around 2000. So you figure if these guys were playing for the Yankees, in the 30s, they're getting up there. They're around 70 at the youngest. No, that's not good. That's not my math.
Yeah, he died
like
in
80,
41.
85, right? So,
Yeah.
So these guys were all really old. But I found Lou Gehrig's lawyer who knew Eleanor really well.
Wow.
I found guys named a couple ball players. Phil Rizzuto was still around. I talked to him. Billy Werber, who was a rookie with the Yankees in 1927. I interviewed him. He used to play bridge with Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. And he said, Lou Gehrig
He's on the 27 Yankees?
Yeah, he came up as a rookie on the 27 Yankees.
Wow.
Got to interview him. One guy, shoot, I'm blanking on his name now. It'll come to me in a second. He was a right fielder for the Yankees who actually visited Gehrig after he was diagnosed. When he couldn't get out of bed anymore, went to Gehrig's house. Tommy Henrik remembered going to visit Lou at his house when after he'd had ALS for a little while. So that was exciting to get to talk to some people who actually knew him. And the one thing I learned about his family was that his wife and his mom didn't get along at all. So even when Lou was diagnosed, and even when he was homebound, his wife and his mom couldn't be in the house together at the same time. It was really sad because Lou loved his mom. He was real mama's boy. But Eleanor and Christine didn't get along, and that's really one of the sad parts of the story. That even when Lou was sick, his family never made up, and I felt bad for him about that because I think that must have been really hard for him.
Yeah, she seems his mom seems like a tough bird.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly. She was a German immigrant and she'd lost 3 children. Lou was the only one who survived. So she really doted on him, because he was the only one she had left. And then, to see him getting sick at such an early age must have been very hard for her.
So when I watched The Pride of the Yankees, the actress who played her was a little too sweet.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Based on your book, I was like, she was not this nice.
Yeah, I think The funny thing is that, Eleanor really shaped that movie because, she's the one who went out to Hollywood and consulted on it. So she made the character, she made Eleanor's character, the hero of the movie in a lot of ways. I didn't love Pride of the Yankees. I thought Gary Cooper came off a little too wimpy. And part of the reason that movie's wimpy though, and why they have like this dance scene and this musical number, it's because the movie came out during World War II. So all the men were overseas. They had to figure out a way to make the movie appealing to women. So because women were the only ones back home buying movie theater tickets. So they gave Eleanor more lines. They put in the musical. They made it more of a romance.
Yeah, the movie didn't line up with your book on how they met either.
Yeah.
It's interesting that she had her hands in that because she rewrote their intro.
Yeah, that's right. It's dangerous when you let your wife tell your story.
Oh my God, I need to tell mine now. Courtney, take a memo. How long did it take to write and research the book?
It was about 3.5 years.
You started in 2000 and it came out in 05.
Yeah, that's right.
Were you working on it every single day? Do you have that luxury or?
Well, I had a day job back then. I was a reporter at the Wall Street Journal. So I mostly worked on it nights and weekends. That was before we had kids, so I had some time on the weekends to work on a book. But it was also the first book I ever wrote, so I was figuring out how to do it as I went along. I really didn't know what I was doing, and I had to just figure it out by trial and error. But it was a lot of fun, and like I said, the baseball part was pretty easy because you've got newspaper reporters covering Gehrig every day. And one of the interesting things about Gehrig is that, as I mentioned earlier, he was so shy. He hated doing interviews. So for a long time, I was really worried, what if I write a book about Lou Gehrig and I really don't get it? I don't get his personality. Maybe he's shy because he's just stupid. Maybe he's shy because he's sensitive. Maybe he's shy because he's aloof. I think he was very insecure. That's one thing I came to conclude. But when you write a biography of somebody, you're taking their life in your hands. And, who am I? I never got to meet the guy. And I couldn't interview his wife. I couldn't interview his kids. So I used to have these dreams about, seeing Lou Gehrig. Like I remember one dream I had, I was driving like down the road in like an old Model T or something, or Packard. And I saw Lou Gehrig standing on the side of the road hitchhiking. And I was like, oh, I'm finally going to get to interview Gehrig. I'm finally going to figure out what he's really like. And I pulled over and he just waved me along. Like he wouldn't get in the car. I had that dream over and over again. Like he was just not going to make it easy for me to figure it out. But when I got those letters, that's when I really figured him out. That's when I really began to understand him.
That's cool that you had dreams about it. I mean, that's pretty vivid that you were driving a Model T.
Yeah. No, every time I'm working on a book, I have dreams about the person I'm writing about.
That's like working on a song. You go to bed singing it, you wake up singing it, and it just never leaves you until the next one replaces it.
Oh, really? Does it get better when you're dreaming? Like, do you get ideas for how to improve the song?
Sometimes, and I don't necessarily dream about them, but I will wake up the next day and it's like it's locked in there, and yeah, that's super cool. So, I have a friend in LA who directed a movie that I was in, and the movie, she wrote the screenplay for Black Beauty, Disney's latest incarnation of this. I would love to send her this and ask her to consider writing a screenplay based on your book, unless there's one already there.
Well, there's something in the works, but I don't know if it's going to come off. So I don't see any harm in sharing the book and asking people for ideas. But I will tell you that we've been working on a deal with Peter Farrelly as a director, and we're trying to see if we can make it go. At first, it was a TV show, and now they're thinking about maybe feature film instead. But who knows? Hollywood is probably even more frustrating than the book business. It takes them forever to get anything done. We've been working on this for more than 10 years, so I'm not holding my breath anymore. But we're getting closer. So it would be great. I just think that the story is so good, and Gehrig's. I love the story of the romance, really, and that's what gets me excited. Lou and Eleanor are just a great, fascinating couple.
Selfishly, I would love to shed light on the disease and to show people how this giant of a public figure and giant of a man and someone who served his community and someone who loved so passionately falls apart based on something that we have within our power to correct. And while I don't want to make it a sad story, I kept waiting for the moment when the ALS hit, because before I read it, I thought he had died in 39, and I realized later, oh, that's when he retired from baseball,
Yeah.
And selfishly, I feel like the movie could be really compelling in the modern style, and showing. I was amazed that he was speaking until the day he died.
Yeah. Yeah, and that actually what you said is interesting, and I want to ask you a question. But first, I want to point out that what you mentioned that Gehrig talked about the disease. He went, he became public, went public, and in the speech, of course, on July 4th, 1939 at Yankee Stadium, when he said, "I'm the luckiest man on the face of the earth," it's really worth remembering that back then people didn't talk about their diseases. They didn't talk about, like, celebrities, if they had cancer, they just disappeared.
Yeah,
So
David Bowie style.
right, for Gehrig at that time to announce to the world that he has this disease that nobody's familiar with, and there was fear, there was sort of panic. Oh my God, it might be contagious. The Yankees might all have it. That took a lot of courage for Gehrig to do that, and to just to say to the public, I may not be able to beat this thing, but what's important is that I've had a great life. It was even more powerful back then because it was so rare to hear anyone speak in public about their challenges. So I wondered, from your standpoint, Hop, what responsibilities do you feel like you have to speak out on this?
Well, I personally felt like that my platform was so big that I had a responsibility to talk about it. I think if it had been something else, prostate cancer that we can treat, something treatable that I might be able to beat. I might not have made such a big splash. I might have jumped in with everyone else and said, there's massive funding for cancer research and we're making amazing strides with Keytruda, and we still have a long way to go, but I'm going to be a part of this group, and there are so many great ALS organizations out there, but it's still really rare for people to hear that I have ALS and then know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, so many people are in the dark about what it even is. And Lou brought it to the world, you know. Your book says it was discovered in France in the 1800s, 1870, late 1800s. I didn't know that. Um, you know, everyone should listen to, read Jonathan's book. I'm sure that most of you have already, but if you haven't, pass a copy around to someone because it's engaging and it's um, you're waiting for the next baseball thing and then you kind of know the answer. You're waiting for the end. You're waiting for what happens when Lou gets sick. And you know, I don't pretend to be anything like Lou Gehrig, but I did feel a responsibility to use our platform to spread awareness and to fund research because we do believe that ALS is not incurable, that it is grossly underfunded. So
Well,
that's why I stepped up.
we appreciate your taking that leadership. I had another question for you that kind of connects to Gehrig. I wondered because Gehrig, before he knew what was going on, he began noticing something was going on with his body, and he began, one of the things that I discovered is he began ordering lighter bats, for example. He began adjusting his batting stance. And this was a full year really before he was diagnosed. He began just trying to hit differently. And I wondered, you're still out there on the road. Have you, in some ways, Gehrig got better at certain things when he had to adjust? I'm wondering if you could talk about that. Are there things that, that you've had to change? Anything that you've gotten better at? Anything you appreciate more as you
I've
as
always
you
been the shittiest musician in the band. So um, there's no getting better for me. But I did notice in 2019, I had started taking statin drugs for cholesterol. And I began to notice that my right hand, I'm right-handed, so I play like this. And my right hand normally would be able to double time snap when we play like an up-tempo bluegrass number. And my double time was broken. Like I couldn't get my wrist around fast enough. And it's a very physical motion. But I've been doing this for, I've been doing this double time snap for 35 years. And I'm like, the hell is wrong with my hands?
Mm.
And the left was pretty much normal. So I wondered if I had nerve damage or something was going on muscularly or whatever. That was the fall of 2019. And then in the spring of 2020, I was on the bus and it was getting a little worse. And I looked at everyone in the band and I said, something is wrong with me. I don't know what it is, but I had fallen several times. I was rushing to from this place to that, and my feet got out from under me. And I would trip and fall, and you know, I'm like, I'm not drunk. What's wrong with me? Um, and then COVID. So COVID 18 months later, I'm still talking to my doctors. I'm like, I go off statins in the middle of COVID. Um, and then I come back to them with Praluent and Repatha, which are twice a month instead of every day, and they're an injection, no side effects, no side effects. So 21 in the fall, I'm on stage again, and it's my life's purpose to go make Coy Bowles uneasy and miserable. So I walk over to him and sabotage his performance, and it cracks me up. So I'm walking back to my position, and my legs are locking up, almost like I have cerebral palsy. And I'm like, what the hell? And we had the bass player out with COVID at some point, and I'm the original bass player, so I had to pick up the bass again, and it was a nightmare. My right hand did not do the bass things that it has always done. Um, so, and my left hand in the fall of 21 wasn't doing the Devil Went Down to Georgia riff. I've been doing that forever. And so it was my general practitioner, my internist, that gave me my first ALS test, because I had been to 2 neurologists already. And they said, get some rest, change your diet, lose weight. And it was my general practitioner that said, I want to rule out ALS. So he sent me to a third neurologist, and he ruled it in. And then it was confirmed at Mass General 2 weeks later, and then reconfirmed when I visited John Glass at Emory. So 5 neurologists total, 3 of which believed ALS to be my diagnosis. And that was 2.5 years ago at the end of June. It will be 2.5 years. So while I was told that ALS patients die within 2 to 5 years, I am still on the road. So not every ALS case is the same. In fact, they're drastically different.
Yeah.
And the fact that Lou was on his deathbed talking to his family before he slipped off into a coma is mind-blowing. I mean, that I've never heard of that method of dying. In fact, I was like, wait, so he was talking, he was weak, he was tired, and he said something, coma, dead. Like, what the hell? Like, this is not a typical ALS demise, you know?
Yeah.
Everyone turns into a living statue, a living statue, and succumbs by not eating or breathing or something like that. They don't say, I don't feel good, and lay down and go into a coma and die. So, I'm getting a little aggressive with my answer, but he went out differently than everyone that I'm understanding. So, it's all a mystery. Motor neuron disease is still a mystery. And, you know, Lou was very active. He got hit on the head a couple times. Maybe that's it. Don't know. Maybe it was the smoking. Maybe his diet sucked, but he wasn't on processed food. It
Right.
was the 30s, you
Right.
know. So
Yeah,
I'm looking into everything, and I feel pretty good right now. I'm eating very clean. I'm avoiding anything that has been processed at all. And the best example I've gotten of that is Cheerios. Do oats come in circles from nature? No, someone had to build that.
yeah,
So the fact that they built it is process. And it's that simple. Everyone thinks that Cheerios are great for you. And maybe they're not a problem. I'm not going to sit here and dog Cheerios, but that's what processed means. You know, it's not in its natural form. So I'm trying to start with a pizza crust and make a pizza by shredding my mozzarella and using an organic pizza sauce rather than call a delivery service, you know, because I don't know what they're doing.
right. That's
And
great.
it's a pain in the ass, but we have to do everything we can.
Yeah, you got to try everything. You know, one thing that struck me, and we're going to take questions from the audience too, and that struck me about what your story about, you know, playing guitar and doing the double time is that, you know, you and Gehrig have something else in common. That's that you both, you had jobs that were physical. For people who sit at a desk all day like me, um, it's not the same thing because you know your body, and he knew his body so well. And I think that it became clear very quickly to him that something, his body wasn't doing what it had always done. The one thing that he could always rely on was he knew how to hit a baseball. He knew how to throw a baseball. And when he started stumbling around the base paths, or it was like you said, you described, you know, your legs locking, walking across the stage. The same thing happened to him one time. He was running out a double. He knew it was a double from the minute he left his bat, right? He'd hit, you know, I don't know how many doubles in the course of his career, hundreds of doubles. He knew it was a double. And suddenly he's halfway to second base. And he's like, wait a second, that was supposed to be a double. How come I'm not there yet? And I think, you know, for people who do physical things for a living, it's, you know, your body so well, you know exactly what it's supposed to be able to do. And I think, you know, for Gehrig, that made it even more, you know, difficult because, you know, and he had to do it in front of other people, you know, 50,000 people in the stands watching him, you know, stop between first and second base. That's got to be tough.
I remember telling my wife before the diagnosis, I said, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I feel like if I try to take off running right now, because I'm a runner and a jump, I'm not a runner. I'm too fat to be a runner, but I like to sprint and jump with my instrument and all that. And I said, if I take off running right now, I'm gonna fall flat on my face. I can't get my legs around fast enough. And yet I'm I'm still moving and standing and walking and all that. But um, you know, and it's worse when I sit for an extended period of time, and it's worse when I'm tired. So who knows? Who knows? Um, you know, before we get to everyone else asking questions, and I can't believe we've been here for 50 minutes. I had a final question for you.
All right.
What is your favorite band?
Is this a trick question?
Could be.
Yeah. My favorite band, man, that's a tough one. As I told you, I've loved your music, but I'm not going to lie to you and say you're my favorite band. I hope that's okay. My favorite band is probably the Rolling Stones. I'm old school, you know. Sorry, I disappointed you there. Are we no longer friends?
We opened for the Stones here in Atlanta. Last year,
Like,
22.
yeah,
And we were scheduled to open for them in Jacksonville the year before, and Mick had a heart issue and had to have a minor surgery, and then he came back. I've gotten several Stones songs that I absolutely adore, and getting to see them in their mid to late 70s, and Mick is running, not jogging,
yeah.
running up and down the thrust at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Getting to see that was an absolute incredible moment for me. I do like the Stones. I just wanted to put you on the spot there.
You did. Well, do you have a
Yes,
favorite
your
band?
favorite concert would have been us opening for the Stones. You should have been there.
You should have invited me.
Yeah, next time I will.
All right. What about you? Other than the Zac Brown Band, do you have a favorite?
Well, if you're gonna say Stones, I'm gonna say Beatles. You know, like you can't be. You have to be one or the other, a Beatle
Yeah.
or a Stone. But I also have grown up in love with the Indigo Girls. They're local to me, and as folk songwriters and acoustic guitar players and harmony singers, they are by far my favorite. Um, Rock bands like Journey and U2 and REM are the bands that I grew up playing and emulating in my high school band. And then we learned countless Eagles songs, and Little River Band was a big favorite of mine growing up. And I've always been attracted to real singers, and the harmony thing, which is probably why I'm a Beatle more than a Stone. But the Stones bring a total energy to everything they do that's undeniable. And the Beatles quit,
Yeah.
so I'm pissed about that.
A lot of people are still pissed about that.
Yeah, stick with it, guys.
Come on, yeah, they could.
Hey
Who
guys,
knows?
I think we'll go to some of our community member questions. And then if you guys haven't finished up your questions, we'll go back to that. We just have a few here. So Brenda, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I feel like he kind of answered it. I had asked about, just how did you get the details about his life post-diagnosis, and that I had known his wife was his caregiver and how she carried on the legacy. But I actually have a new question. You're free to talk about that. I just feel like since 2005, when your book was published, I definitely think that ALS is becoming more like, I don't know, it's just like part of the culture. Like they had that ice bucket challenge. I don't know, for people who follow football, Steve Gleason, who won like the presidential medal of whatever. So I'm just curious, if there was going to be like a new edition of your book, is there anything you would change, switch out, want to put more emphasis on?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. Unfortunately, we really haven't learned that much more about Lou since then. So I don't know that there's anything I'd change about his story, but I do think you're right that a new generation of people have taken up the cause, and Ice Bucket Challenge is a great example. what you guys are doing at ALS and Hop on the Cure. You know, people are taking it on themselves to really, for a long time, people would say, well, we haven't had a big celebrity since Lou Gehrig. Lou Gehrig's, you know, people don't know Lou Gehrig's name as much as they used to anymore. And I don't think that matters, because I think that so many, you know, groups are taking up the charge of advocacy and making sure that the story stays in front of people.
Thank you. And Hop, happy birthday. I Googled you and you have a birthday in 2 days, and we were born in the same year. So blessing.
Ah,
Yes. Beatles.
yeah, thank you.
Hey, Pete, do you want to ask your question to Hop?
Okay, thank you. Thanks to both of you. This has been a fascinating discussion. Hop, this one I guess is to you in you know that maybe your guitar playing becomes more difficult and less possible going forward, but being able to write songs, you know, it continues and should. So have you seen the fact that you have ALS, or your thoughts about that, influence any songwriting that you've been doing? And if so, I don't know if there's any titles we could listen to going forward.
Unfortunately, there are no titles right now that I can send, but I assure you that they're being worked on. There might be a YouTube link out there from like 30A or something where I'm, you know, falling apart trying to sing these songs. And I actually started writing one. I was diagnosed on December 22nd, 2021. If you're into numerology, that's a crazy date. 12/22/21. And we went to Callaway Gardens that night, the way that we always do at Christmas time, and we saw their incredible, cheesy, charming light show that you drive through the park and get to see all the lights, and I was just numb. You know, I was on I was on the Jolly Trolley, and I was not jolly at all. That night I couldn't sleep. Everything was racing through my mind, like, what is next? This guy just told me I'm gonna die in 2 to 5 years. I mean, my kids are young, you know, they're little. Now they're 15 and 11, but if I got hit by a meteor right now, they still need me, you know. This is not fair. Like, what do I tell them? And the only thing I could come up with was "I love you forever." And that became a song that I am working on now. I've finished the song, I've performed it a couple times, but I'm working on the best way to put it out there in the universe. And since that, I mean, I came home the next day and wrote the chorus in the studio the next day. So since then, there's a song that we are prepared to release soon called "Each Other," and I've got a song called "Jesus and I Are Gonna Have Words When I Die." That's an interesting title, right? And then I'm writing a collection of heavy metal songs that are all titled with the acronym ALS. So the flagship is A Living Statue. We have another one called Active Lacrimosity Sucks. Lacrimosity is crying. Crying sucks. That was a quote from Fox News of an interview that I did. I was like, crying sucks. I don't want to cry anymore. And then the headline is Hopkins says crying sucks. I'm like, what the fuck, guys? You couldn't get a better title than that? So I'm gonna write a song called Active Lacrimosity Sucks. And there are several other titles that are ALS, and that's going to be an interesting way to look at it. And we're writing about the fear and the pain and spasms and pseudobulbar syndrome and falling down and all the things that I know about, except the living statue part. That's the end game. You know, and I'm trying to create things that create awareness, but not offend people that are further along than me. And I think most people would back me up that have ALS and hopefully cheer me on, because I can still sing, but you're probably hearing my nasal issue as I'm tired now of speaking. I do have some pseudobulbar syndrome that I deal with, and if I'm rested, I can come up here and put something together, but it's not the same at all. I used to come up here and crush multiple songs in an afternoon, and now I have my saline pipe and my water and my breathing straws to warm my voice up just to do a verse and chorus. So it has changed a lot, but I am still writing songs, and every song has ALS attached to it now. It's become my whole life.
Thank you. Thanks, Hop. We have a question here for Jonathan, and it's from Lori, and she's saying, Jonathan, with all your research on Lou Gehrig and learning more about ALS, what's the one thing you learned about ALS that surprised you?
I guess the biggest surprise for me is just how different it is for everybody. You know, Hop was saying that, you know, Gehrig was able to speak right up to the end, and, you know, it just seems like it's a million different diseases and nobody's figured out, you know, maybe someday we'll find out it was a million different diseases. And I don't know, but I think that's the thing that, you know, when I went into the book and I began to research and I didn't know what Gehrig's experience was with ALS, I thought, how am I going to describe it? Because every single person goes through it differently. So even if I interviewed lots of people who had ALS, I still wouldn't know what Gehrig went through. So the fact that I found those letters was really huge in that way, because otherwise I don't think I could have told you anything about the last, you know, year and a half of his life. So that's probably been the biggest surprise to me, because, you know, you hear it has a name, it's Lou Gehrig's disease, it's ALS, but I mean, I've got a friend, Amy Chamernick in Chicago, who was diagnosed more than 20 years ago. and she can still talk. She can walk a little bit, mostly, gets around in her chair, but 20 years and she's still, she's still great. So it's just so different.
Take a bow, Lori. 20 years.
Jonathan, I've had ALS for 20 years myself. So I say I'm one of the lucky, unlucky ones. Thank you for sharing that.
Still hot as fuck though. Right, Paul?
Are you on here?
Oh,
Yeah, Paul's in the back room.
Now respond. Oh, there he is.
That's her husband.
Didn't you hear what he said? You don't have an answer?
He did the thumbs up.
Oh, he did. Oh, okay.
And he's gonna come grab your ass later.
Good answer.
There he goes.
oh, here he
Oh,
comes.
there he is.
Yeah, get in there, bud.
Oh, that's too funny. Hey, I'd like everybody to come off mute because I didn't know it was Hop's birthday, but I think we should sing happy birthday to Hop.
Yes.
All right, you guys ready? Come on, get off mute. Come on, everybody.
Happy birthday
Birthday
to
to
you. Happy
Happy
birthday
birthday
to
to
you.
Happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday,
dear
dear
John.
John. Happy
birthday
birthday
to
to
you.
you. And many, 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 many more.
My bet is you're not signing any of us up anytime soon.
Oh, gosh. Well, that's really all that we have time for, you guys.
I
So
have a morbid curiosity. I know 3 people named Jan Smith. Are you a Jan Smith that I know? Because I haven't seen your face yet. Are you one of my cousins, or are you Mama Jan? Hello. She's all mute.
It's the shy Jan Smith that you know.
All right.
Well, I want to thank everybody and especially thank Hop for joining us. And if I can be of any help to you in your work, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Well, thank you, Jonathan, so much. And I will send my friend this book. Oh, it's my cousin Jane. Okay. Hi, cousin. Yes, I thank you. I will send my friend this book, and I will stay in touch with you in terms of a screenplay.
Yeah, let's stay in touch. And if anybody needs signed books, you can always reach out to me, especially for fundraisers. I'm happy to do that.
Very, very cool. We have our gala in September, and we would love a signed book or 10.
Happy to do that.
hey, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Really heartfelt thanks to
All right.
everyone, to Jonathan, to Hop, and not just for joining us tonight, but for all that you do to advocate for ALS. And if you'd like to learn more about ALS or I Am ALS, you can go to iamals.org. And if you'd like a signed copy of Jonathan's book, you can head over to the I Am ALS bookstore. And please check out Jonathan's website. I've dropped it in the chat. And then, of course, if you'd like to know more about Hop on a Cure, we've got that available too. So Thank you again so much, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all.